All right. Well, I have 8:03 and we've got a lot of people on, so I think we'll go ahead and get started, at least with introductions. I'm Randy Morman. I am the Director of Policy and Community Campaigns at EcoCycle. I also serve as the Policy Chair of the Policy Committee for Recycle Colorado. And I'll let Allie introduce herself next.
Great. Thanks, Randy. Hi, I'm Ali Vizeski. I am the Director of Operations with Recycle Colorado. So you've probably received a bunch
Ooh.
of emails from me and Randy. We are kind of the main communicators and organizers for Lobby Day. So we're super excited to have you guys here.
Great. Thank you, Allie. And I'll have Brandy introduce herself.
Good morning, everybody. Brandy Moe, Executive Director of Recycle Colorado, and I echo the same sentiments. We are so excited to have you. This is the preparation for our awesome lobby day tomorrow, and having you all here is going to make tomorrow just flow nice and smooth. So, very excited to see you all.
Great. Thank you, Brandy. All right. Well, to kick us off, I'm going to have Allie share her screen and show where on our website you can get resources for tomorrow to make sure you have what you need. I think for today's training, the most important thing is to everyone to have access to the Advocate Lobby Day materials. It's one packet, and so she'll show you how to get that if you don't already have that.
Cool. Thanks, Randy. So I put the link in the chat and I'll do it again just so you can bookmark it on your phone or device that you're bringing with to take notes. I also sent an email yesterday and the subject line is like, know before you go, 2026 Lobby Day, if you can't find that. And that has a link to this webpage, everything you need to know about Lobby Day that we'll also go over here today. And then it has all of these handouts that we'll go through as well. So this page is on our new website. So when you're on the home screen and you go to recyclecolorado.org, if you go under events and we're doing Lobby Day tomorrow, you can find it by going over and clicking the Lobby Day Advocates little tab right here. Or if you get onto the Lobby Day page itself, there's also a link here, Advocate Resources. So you can click that, or you can click on it from right here. It'll take you to this page. And this will have everything that you need for Lobby Day all in one spot. Makes it super easy. We have different tabs for all the different things you need. So there's not going to be like a ton of scrolling. You can just kind of click on the tabs, which makes it easy this year. So you have the agenda, the instructions, our legislative priorities. So this is information on the bills and different priorities that we are going to talk about with legislators this year. There is the script, which will help guide your conversations with legislators. The legislative schedule with some notes on like how to find different things at the Capitol because it's kind of confusing and they use acronyms just like all of us do. And then for our captains, there's the link to submit your reports. Okay. And beneath that is our Lobby Day handouts. And so these are all the things that were included in the email for you all. You can have them on your phone. You can have a printed out copy. So, as an example, printed this one out yesterday. It kind of got messed up, so we have to reprint this one. But these will be at Lobby Day for you, so you can have a paper copy if you want. We have, this is the one pager right here, as it says. We have a multi-pager. I think it's like 3 pages that you can also have, which has like all of this on paper format. So whichever version you feel more comfortable with, you can bring. If you want to print it out ahead of time, that's super helpful, but we will have a couple of copies for you as well. And then for our captains, we have a little bit of a longer handout, which just has a little bit of additional information and like that legislative schedule, since you're going to kind of be in charge of directing your fellow volunteers within your group. Okay, so those are the 3 that are most pertinent to you all, that you are in charge of printing if you want, or just, keeping it as a bookmark on your device throughout the day. The legislator brochure is something that we will have copies of for legislators. So this is the one thing that we're going to hand out to legislators. So we'll have a bunch of copies of those. The other handout that you see here is from Western Resource Advocates. This, or WRA, this is a bill that we're not running, but we are supporting. And so we'll be talking with legislators about this bill and what it does and why it's important to support on Lobby Day. So this is for you to have information. Not sure if we're going to hand that out to legislators or not. Brandy and Randy, do you have any thoughts?
Probably would be good to have some copies for each group to distribute. Yes. That'd be
Okay,
great.
so we'll have a couple of copies of that as well. Okay, cool. So all accessible right here. You can click on the image of what it is or click the little buttons down here and it should bring them up. You can download them, print them, whatever you want to do. Cool.
Great.
And then beneath that, we have our Lobby Day group assignments. So if you want to know what group you're in, these have changed. So just beware. I'm going to adjust these after this meeting. But you can double check which group you're in just by clicking where you live. Pretty easy. And then all of the locations, contact numbers, and a little map here that we use every year is available on there as well.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
All right. I'm going to start sharing and get going here. Okay. So again, welcome to our Lobby Day training. And of course, Lobby Day is tomorrow on March 12th. And for our agenda today, we just did our welcome and introductions. I'm going to go over next the schedule of Lobby Day. Then we're going to talk about why should we lobby, and how to be an effective lobbyist. And then I'm going to also walk through what the legislative process is. And we have our esteemed lobbyist for Recycle Colorado, Eliza Schultz, joining us, and she's going to talk about what's happening at the legislative session right now, what's kind of like the political environment, what's going on, give you some context there. And then I'm going to cover our legislative priorities and also our logistics for Lobby Day tomorrow. What's going to happen when you get to the Capitol? What does that look like? Where to go? And then we'll go over the script of lobbying. And then we'll take questions and we'll finish with breakouts for you to practice with the scripts, decide who's going to play what roles and kind of run through that, get to know some of your fellow teammates. And that'll be it. And so we'll be wrapped up by 9:30 today. So let's get rolling. We did our welcome and introductions. So our schedule for tomorrow, so important for you to get there by 7:45 at the Capitol, meaning you have parked and you are at the building at 7:45. And because it may take a while to get through security. So there's security on the north and south entrances of the building. I'm going to have a map here in a minute to kind of walk you through where that is. And then we are meeting at the bottom of the main staircase of the first floor. So there's this, and I'll show you that on the map as well. So from 8 to 8:20, we will have a light breakfast for you. It'll be a chance for you to get with your groups. And then by 9 o'clock, we will head upstairs and start lobbying. And I'll talk a lot more about what that's going to look like. And so we will go to around 4 o'clock. And then we will have lunch from 12 to 1 and I'll be provided back at that location at the base of the main staircase. And then we have our reception from 4 to 6:30 at Forte, which is in the Lincoln Center building. So here's a map of the Capitol, and this is basically the second floor, what you're seeing here. And so where it says Rotunda in the center, that's really the best thing to look for, and it's easy to find to get yourself oriented. And when you are coming into the building through security, it will either be on Colfax side, which is the north side of the building, on the left side of this map, or on the south side, which is the 14th Street side of this map. And so both sides have entrances that you can go through security. Um, and once you do, you'll get into the building and then orient yourself and get yourself to where that says Rotunda, and get yourself to the first floor. And at the base of the first floor, then is where we will be to greet you, and we'll have a nice big Recycle Colorado table, and you can find us easily. So that is how to get into the building and how to find us, to get your day started. When you go through security, you don't have to take off your shoes, or you don't have to take off your belt or actually you do have to take off your belt. I'm stand corrected, but you don't have to take off your shoes. And then of course everything will need to go through the X-ray machine, and you will walk through the metal detector. And if you have beverages with you, they usually allow you to carry those through the machine, or through the metal detector. So that is the security process. And then as far as orienting to the rest of the building, so we will be again starting on the first floor, which is actually where the executive branch is, and that's where the governor's office is. And then when you get to the second floor, that's where all of the chambers are for the legislators. So you can see now on this map, again, it's showing you the second floor, but on the south side are the Senate chambers, and they are smaller. And then on the west side of the building is where the House chambers are, and they are larger. And outside of each chamber is a lobby, and that is where lobbyists hang out to talk to legislators. Of course, they talk to legislators everywhere in the building, but you will probably find, especially in the morning, find yourself spending a lot of time in those lobbies, and we'll talk about that some more. So that is your general orientation to the map of the Capitol, if you haven't been there before. And next, I just want to touch upon why we are doing this. It's really important for us as an organization, as Recycle Colorado, to develop relationships with legislators. And of course, legislators change year after year, and so it's really important that we are there. We are meeting them, and we are talking to them about our priorities and who we are. And so we want to build that political capital and influence, and that has really, really paid off for our organization, especially over the last 5 to 6 years. We passed some very major legislation, like producer responsibility, and most recently last year, the producer responsibility for small and medium format batteries. And so we want to continue that momentum and building off of those successes. And so that's why it's so important that we are there every year on Lobby Day, interacting with our legislators. And of course, we want to educate them on our issues. And then we want, for tomorrow in particular, one of our priorities is getting a bill passed, as Ali touched on in the introduction, with where you can find the fact sheet on the EV battery recycling bill. And so that is Senate Bill 26-003. I'm going to talk a lot more about that here in a little bit. But we want to get commitments from legislators on their support for that bill. That is important for what we want to do tomorrow. And of course, we want to just determine what kind of overall support or opposition we see for that bill and some of our other priorities. So how to be an effective lobbyist? One is we want to prioritize our issues and bills to maximize our impact. And we want to be speaking with one voice. And it's so important when we're there on Lobby Day that there are, 50 or so of us, and we are talking to legislators and they're hearing from us. That has a big impact, and that we have this one voice that we are speaking from. And then also number three is that we want to follow the 50-50 rule. And that means we don't want to do all the talking. We want to give a chance for the legislator to speak when we're meeting with them. So really try to follow that 50-50 rule, ask them some questions like, what do you think? What's your perspective? How can we be helpful? Those kind of questions to get them to engage on our issues. All right, I'm going to come back to this in a minute. I'm going to skip to Eliza. Eliza, I hope you got out of traffic and you can talk to us now. And if not, that's okay. We'll come back to you. But I just want to check in and give you a chance to talk to everyone about what's happening at the Capitol right now. Eliza, are you there?
Hi, good morning. Sorry, I thought I hit the mute button and I did not. Hey, good morning, everybody. Excited to see you tomorrow. Um, I'll just add a couple of logistics things that you should know. This winter has been really warm and the building is incredibly hot. So just know that I would avoid heavy sweaters or lots of layers because it is roasty toasty in there. And please double up your deodorant. Promise you this is worth the investment. Um, so things are moving at the Capitol. There are a number of bills that have passed out of committee and they're waiting in appropriations because the budget is a major factor this year. The last official number that we had was we are $850 million in the hole. And the governor submitted a balanced budget package that, about half of that is what I'll call funny money. Is $400 million for the conversion of Pinnacle, and then another 100 or so to change how Tabor rebates are done, but there is not an agreement that that would even be constitutional. So the Joint Budget Committee is making some difficult decisions right now on programs to cut. Things are so difficult that they are looking to significantly cut programs that support parents taking care of their disabled children. Higher education is really going to be gutted because there's no constitutional requirement to fund higher ed. They are probably going to cut K-12. They are cutting mental health beds for people who are inpatient with severe mental disabilities. They are, I would expect them to zero out any kind of tax credits this year. It's just really bad. We had a $1.2 billion budget deficit last year, and half of that came from cash funds that usually fund transportation. I suspect more cash funds are going to be swept into the general fund to make programming work. To give you a sense of how bad it is, the Joint Budget Committee every year does what they call a stress test on the budget. And that is to say, under current law, with current trends, what will happen to the state's reserve, which is a healthy reserve, it's about 15%. What would happen to the reserve in a couple of years versus 1 year? And if current law stays on track without a recession, without federal funds being pulled, we will run out of money in the reserve in 2 fiscal years. If there is just a slight downturn, recession, we will run out of money by the end of next fiscal year, which would be June of 2027. That would deplete the reserves completely. So they have a lot of really difficult decisions to make. And there continues to be more pressure from the federal government on where to spend money, backfilling money, withholding money, etc. So the first question legislators are probably going to ask you is, Does this bill cost any money? So we can talk about, the policy there. And the budget is going to be kind of front and center in people's mind. I will say some legislators really don't have a handle on how difficult these decisions are going to be, and are proud of themselves for getting their fiscal note down to $200,000. But even that has a very hard chance of passing. We are already seeing the Joint Budget Committee members crying on the mic because of decisions that they've had to make. So the budget is really, really bad. The other kind of political dynamic that you should just be aware of is there continues to be some tension between the more moderate Democrats and the progressive Democrats on what is called the Opportunity Caucus, of a group of moderate Democrats who wanted to formalize their group a little bit more. And they started fundraising quite a bit of money. And the progressives got worried first that ethics laws might be challenged, and second, that what are the moderates going to be doing with this money, and are they going to be putting up primary candidates against the progressives? So there's some what I call dem on dem violence happening. It doesn't feel as acute as it did at the beginning of session, but the tension is still there. And then there are some big fights still looming. They're very close to a deal on AI liability, which is huge. So that'll be a good thing. And I think we're going to have a lot of conversations in the energy space, data centers, the Public Utilities Commission, reauthorization, and some others. So that is kind of high level overview. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Eliza. Brandy, you have a question?
I don't. I just move around with my hands a lot, and Zoom likes to think that I'm raising my hand.
Okay. Well, Eliza, I do have a question because I think it's important for our folks to know this, and you raised that when we're talking to legislators, they're going to want to know if what we're talking about costs any money. So we will be talking about the EV battery bill. Do you have a suggested response for our folks when legislators ask if it costs money?
I haven't looked at the fiscal note since the strike blow was adopted, but if I'm guessing, I don't believe it will have any general fund impact, so no state spending impact. But I don't have the fiscal note in front of me, Randy. Maybe you do.
No, I don't, but we can get that. Yeah. Okay. Anyone else have questions for Eliza before we let her go? All right. Well, thank you, Eliza, so much for joining us this morning, and we'll see you tomorrow.
Thanks. I'll see you tomorrow.
Bye. All right. We will get back to my slides here. Oops. There we go. All right. So I wanted to take, excuse me, a few minutes and talk through the legislative process here in Colorado. It does vary from state to state, and it can be quite different from what we see at the national or federal level. First of all, when we're talking about bills, a bill needs a sponsor in one of the chambers in the House or the Senate to get started. And excuse me, each legislator is allowed to introduce 5 bills. And so once a bill has a sponsor, then the bill is drafted by a legislative council, which is a team of lawyers who are nonpartisan, and they work for the state legislature. After that draft bill is complete, it is ready for introduction, and it is introduced either in the House or the Senate, depending, of course, on who the sponsor is to start that. They call that the prime sponsor, the very first sponsor. And so when a bill is introduced in a chamber, that is called the first reading. And it is the Speaker of the House or the Senate President who assigns the bill then to a committee or to committees. And what we say now at that point is the bill is read across the desk. That's the first reading, and it's assigned a bill number and assigned those committees in that chamber. Then the committee chair of that first committee assignment is the one who schedules a public hearing for that bill. And one thing that I think is really important to note that is in the state of Colorado, every bill is required to have a public hearing. That is not the same in other state legislators, and it's definitely not something required at the federal level. But here in Colorado, it is something that I think we take some pride in, is that every bill gets a public hearing, and that means that the public can come and speak either in favor or in opposition of that bill. And so during that public hearing, we get public comment, and committee members get to debate the bill, and both the committee members and the sponsors of the bill can provide amendments or changes to the bill at that time. Now, if there are amendments, those are voted on first, and then there is an up or down vote to move the bill forward out of that committee and onto its next assignment. If the bill passes the committee, it may either go to another committee, and oftentimes, if there's any money involved, it may go to the Finance Committee, or we'll have to go through appropriations. And then it gets to the full chamber, so the full House or the full Senate. Now, when it arrives to the House floor or the Senate floor, it first goes through what is called a second reading. And a second reading is really not like the full body acting, but it's more like the body is another committee. And so what happens is the Speaker of the House or the President of the Senate will assign another member of their party to chair second reading on that day. And so there is a chair that is assigned instead of the Speaker or the President, and then that chair runs that committee of what they call the Committee of the Whole. And at that time, there is debate that legislators, either in the House or the Senate, will offer amendments, and then they will take a voice vote on whether to move the bill forward. And it is up to the chair, whoever is chairing that day, to determine the outcome of that voice vote, and they will proclaim that the bill has passed or the bill has failed. And if the opposing party wants to challenge that determination by the chair, they may do so, and then they would request a recorded vote. But not all bills go through a recorded vote on second reading. Now, if it passes second reading, it then goes to third reading, which has to happen 24 hours after it passed on second reading. And on third reading, that is a recorded vote. And so when you are down in the Capitol, down at the Capitol tomorrow, you'll have the opportunity, hopefully, to watch third readings. And sometimes they can go pretty fast. And there is electronic boards that will show what the outcomes of each of those votes are and who voted yes or no on the bills. And during third reading, there can be some debate and there can be amendments. But oftentimes it's more common that there are not amendments and a lot of debate on third readings. And sometimes they can, like I say, can go very fast. So if a bill passes second and third reading in its first chamber, then the bill will go to the other chamber. And so here you see, leaving the House, if it started in the House, and it will go to the Senate. And when it goes to the second chamber, it repeats that whole entire process again. So in the new chamber, it gets assigned new committees, it gets another public hearing or public hearings, depending on if it goes to multiple committees, and then it will go through that second reading and that third reading. And one thing I want to note that I didn't say earlier about second reading is there's no public comment when a bill gets to a House or Senate floor. So it is just the legislators debating the bills when they get to the House or Senate. Now, if a bill, let's say, started in the House and gets its way over to the Senate, and then passes through the committees and passes through second and third reading in the Senate, and has no amendments to it in the second chamber, then it would go to the governor's desk to be signed into law. But that is kind of rare. Oftentimes, each chamber wants to have their fingerprints on the bill. And so, more often, that amendments will be made in the second chamber. And if amendments are made in the second chamber, the bill has to go back to the first chamber. So, say here we started in the House, it went to the Senate, amendments were made in both chambers, and now it has to return to the House floor for the House to approve the amendments that were made in the Senate. And so a couple things can happen. One is that the House can approve those amendments and so they take a vote. Do we approve the amendments that were made in the Senate? And if a majority of House members say, yes, we approve those amendments, then it will go to the governor's desk to be signed into law. If House members decide they don't like what the Senate did to their bill and they reject those amendments, and there are two options. One would be for them to say we are going to set up a committee, a joint committee with the Senate, which they call a conference committee. And so they will assign members from the House, and then the Senate will assign members from the Senate. And both of those members will get together, usually early in the morning, and have a conference committee on the bill, try to hash out the differences between the two chambers, and try to produce a new bill, basically, which would be a conference committee bill, or they would call it a conference committee report, that has to go back to both chambers to be approved before going to the governor's desk. Now, the other option is that the House decides we're going to reject the Senate amendments and we're not going to form a conference committee, and the bill would die and not move forward. Or the conference committee doesn't reach an agreement, the bill would die and not move forward. Or one of the chambers would reject the conference committee report and the bill would die. So there's several places where the bill could die if there is not agreement between the Senate and the House on the bill. Now, when it gets to the governor's desk in whatever form or avenue it got there, as I just described, the governor has three choices. One, the governor has, if the legislature is in session, the governor has 10 days to determine whether he's going to sign the bill into law. And if he signs it, then obviously it becomes law. If he could decide not to sign the bill or not to veto it, and it automatically becomes law then as well. And then, of course, his third option is to veto the bill. And if he vetoes the bill while the legislature is in session, then both chambers have the option to override his veto, but it would require a 2/3 vote in the House and a 2/3 vote in the Senate. Now, what about if the session has ended? Because a lot of bills get passed at the very end of session and go to the governor's desk. Well, then he has 30 days to sign it into law. And if he vetoes bills after the legislature has ended, then there's no opportunity to override his veto. So that is quick and dirty overview of what happens down at the Capitol and how bills become a law. And there we go. So now I'm going to go to what our legislative priorities are for tomorrow at Lobby Day. So we've been talking a little bit already about the electric vehicle battery end-of-life management bill, which is Senate Bill 26-003. So that will be the first thing we're going to want to talk to legislators about, because that is what's happening at the Capitol right now, and there's obviously debate. It's going through its legislative process. It has passed its first committee in the Senate, which was the Senate Energy and Transportation Committee. It passed overwhelmingly in that committee. It had bipartisan support. There was only one Republican that voted no on the bill, so that is a very good sign for it. And it has moved on to the Appropriations Committee, and we are waiting for the Appropriations Committee to act on that. So this is a great time for us to be talking to legislators about it, because it's still at the very early stages of its process. And then we also, the other two priorities are we want to educate legislators about the need to use salvaged lumber in new construction. And this comes from our C&D, or Construction and Deconstruction Working Group. And so we're going to get in a little more detail about that here in a minute. And the third one is to identify legislative champions that want to work with us in the future on a bill to keep food scraps and yard trimmings out of landfills. And so we're also going to get into that here in a minute. So let's first talk a little bit more about EV batteries. So those of you who were with us last year for Lobby Day know that we led and successfully passed a producer responsibility bill for small and medium format batteries. And that law does not include electric vehicle batteries. Or in this bill, they're called propulsion batteries. And so this year, Western Resource Advocates and the Union of Concerned Scientists, two organizations, got together and decided they wanted to champion a bill to help with dealing with the end-of-life management of electric vehicle batteries. The sponsors are Senators Katie Wallace and Senator Lisa Cutter. Lisa Cutter was one of our champions last year on the small and medium format battery bill. And then also Representatives Kyle Brown and Rebecca Stewart, who I believe both were also on our small and medium format battery bill last year as well. And then so this slide is really kind of high overview of the bill. The target material is what they call unwanted EV batteries. So obviously, if a battery's in a car, it's not unwanted. If a battery is taken out of a car and put into a second car or used for another purpose, it's not unwanted. But if the battery is of no longer use or is not being used, then it is considered or classified as unwanted. And the funding for this comes from the EV manufacturers themselves. They will be responsible for paying for the collection and the responsible handling of their own unwanted batteries. And they also must pay a fee to CDPHE to cover the costs of oversight and implementation. The collection requirements are that each EV manufacturer and other companies, selling EV batteries must collect and responsibly handle those starting October 1st of 2028. And then finally, there is no stewardship organization like we saw for small and medium format batteries or for packaging that we passed a couple of years ago, and also for paint. There is no stewardship organization for EV batteries. Instead, each individual EV manufacturer is responsible, and they have to come up with their own plan, and then they have to revise that plan every 5 years thereafter, starting in 2028. All right, so how it's going to work in Colorado is that each EV manufacturer must submit a plan for approval by CDPHE. Again, that's starting in 2028. They must include a label on their batteries that tells anyone who finds this battery what to do with it, how to properly manage it, and how to get it collected and recycled by the manufacturer. So they have to provide all that information on a label on the battery, and then elsewhere, like on a website, for folks to easily find and be able to contact the manufacturer to come and collect that unwanted battery. And then they also must implement education and outreach, ensuring the safe handling of their batteries, and of course, again, letting everyone know how to get those batteries collected and recycled. And then, of course, there's also a requirement that unwanted EV batteries are not disposed of in landfills and that they are properly handled. And we want to be preventing any potential fires that may come from them. And so It is part of the manufacturers and their plan to show how they're going to educate the public about the proper handling and prevention of fires. Okay, so that was the first priority. The second one that I'm going to touch on, as I mentioned, is salvage lumber for new construction. And our ask to legislators tomorrow is to help us connect with local interest groups in their district, so that we can do some education about salvage lumber with folks that are in the construction and deconstruction industries in those districts. And currently, local codes lack a clear, consistent pathway for grading, certification, and permitted use for salvage lumber. And so we want to be able to educate the builders and community members on how they can easily reuse salvage lumber, which is a very valuable resource. And as we say here, it can, help us reduce greenhouse gas emissions, support local businesses, and really minimize waste and impacts, environmental impacts. The third priority is organics diversion. And our ask again is for legislators to work with us to create future legislation to keep food scraps and yard trimmings out of landfills. Such legislation would build resilient landscapes, because it could save water, increase food and drought tolerance, and reduce fire risk. Really, another important thing is how keeping organics out of landfills helps us address climate change. Of course, when these types of items like food scraps and yard trimmings go into a landfill, they create methane gas, which is much more powerful than carbon dioxide in warming our climate. But when composted and applied to soil, actually becomes a climate solution and helps sequester carbon and avoid those methane emissions. And then finally, diverting food scraps and yard trimmings really helps build local economies and can create up to 5 times more jobs than landfilling. Okay, so I saw the hand up. There was a question from Brian, so I'll take that before we move on to logistics for tomorrow.
No, there was some actually questions in the chat, Randy, that I wanted to just make sure we're catching.
Okay, please, what was the question?
Question was about how the EV battery, non-EV battery producers have to do for recycling disposable. So how does the battery bill maybe compare to non-EV? We should highlight that this is propulsion batteries, but not all large format batteries. And then there's another question about the costs if the EV battery bill doesn't pass.
Ooh. Okay, so the first question I think you answered was that this only applies to propulsion batteries. And of course, we had a bill last year that passed that dealt with small and medium. So other large batteries that aren't propulsion would not be covered. And then if this bill does not pass, what is the cost, if I understand correctly? That's a hard one to answer. I mean, obviously there's a lot of environmental and social costs to having these batteries not be collected and not recycled. And I mentioned fires is a big one. And then, any type of environmental contamination that comes with that. So I don't have hard numbers for what the costs would be outside of generally speaking. Laura, you have your hand up.
Yes, I am hoping for some clarification around what an unwanted EV battery is. I'm a little like, so all like car EV batteries are considered wanted, is that correct? And if so, what's the unwanted? Can you give some examples?
Yes. So my understanding is the difference is that a wanted EV battery, excuse me, is one that's being used. Okay. So it's either in a car or I've also heard that they can take those batteries after a car has used them and use them for other purposes. So being reused in some way is still wanted. An unwanted battery is where it's basically been, and we've had some instances where it gets dropped off at the landfill, right? And so no one is using it. And it's now a responsibility of a local government or a private entity to deal with disposing of it. And so that's when it becomes unwanted.
Okay, thank you.
You bet. Brianna.
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify. I had put the question in the chat about how this compares to non-EV battery producers. I guess what I'm trying to understand is, does this put more pressure on EV battery producers than standard battery producers? And does that push any incentive for them to leave the state or to go elsewhere to do so?
Great question. Um, so the cost estimate is pretty minimal when we consider how expensive, electric vehicles are on the market. And so the cost is pretty minimal for taking that back and recycling it. And for the manufacturers, they want some of that material back. And so there is some economic incentive to get those batteries back as well. So that's my understanding. And again, I'm not an expert. I should have disclaimed that earlier, but that is my understanding on that. Patrick, you had your hand up for a question?
There we go. Yes, back to the issue of the composting of food scraps and yard trimmings. Your slide read at the beginning to ask the legislators to work with us on this issue. What exactly does that mean?
Yes, great question. So we're not doing a bill this year, so we need to be clear on that. We're not running a bill on organics this year, but we are trying to lay the groundwork to do that in the future. And so we really want to be starting the conversation with legislators now about saying, hey, this is a really valuable resource that we are landfilling, and it's causing climate and other environmental harms. And so let's work on a solution to divert more yard trimmings and food scraps from the landfill and put them to better use. And so our general ask is, you legislator, senator, or representative that you're speaking to, would you be interested in working with us either next year or in the next couple of years on a bill that would increase the diversion of food scraps and yard trimmings from landfills?
And by us, do you mean literally Recycle Colorado?
Yes, that is correct.
Of course, an informed legislator would say that Boulder and Denver's already doing it. So isn't this a community issue?
Well, it's really a statewide issue because it's a challenge for a whole state. A good question.
Okay, thank you.
You bet. Becky, I see your hand is up. Was that from before?
I do have questions.
Okay, yes.
I'm wondering about if there are other states that have, I have four questions. Are there other states that have passed EV bills similar to this? And if so, like, how's it going? Is there an idea that this would cause prices to go up for buying an EV from consumers? What happens to the batteries now, which you a little bit addressed, and who is actually against this and what are their arguments?
Excellent questions. Love your questions. So I talked a little bit about the cost, and that's pretty much what I know is that it's pretty minimal for these manufacturers, and would not expect a significant increase in costs on the vehicle. Again, I don't know the specifics of that, but that's what I have been told. And then on the opposition, so this bill has gone through a lot of changes since it was introduced. And actually, in its first committee, there was an amendment that we call strike below. So they basically struck the whole bill and replaced it with a new bill. And that came from many negotiations with especially the EV manufacturers. And so I think the fact that it passed out of its committee almost unanimously, there was just one committee member who voted against it, shows that. And the public comment during that hearing was by, a very diverse representation of stakeholders that were involved in that process, and showed that there was no one signed up in opposition during the committee, there was many that were signed up as amend. And so because of that, that's why it passed out of its committee so almost unanimously. Does that
Are there other states that
oh yes, other states. So I believe there's only one other state, and I can't remember which one that has passed it, but there are several other states now looking at it like we are.
Thank you.
You bet. Excellent questions. All right, Brandy.
Disregard my hand.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm going to move us along. These are great questions. If you have others, please put them in the chat, and we will try to get to them, but I need to move us along. And of course, I will be at the Capitol tomorrow, and so will Brandy and others from the policy committee, and we will take your questions. We're happy to help answer your questions then as well. I do need to move us along to getting to where we have a chance to break out in our groups and practice. So I need to set you up for that. So again, for tomorrow, we will have groups of 3 to 6 advocates in your team. You will have a team captain, and the appointments you will have with either legislators or their aides. And so tomorrow, each team will get a schedule. We're still finalizing that today, so you won't get it necessarily today, but we will definitely have it for you in the morning. And we'll have set appointments at certain times that your team is to go and meet with the legislator or the legislative aide. And there are 3 different places where those meetings could happen. One, of course, is in the Capitol building itself. And those offices are on the 2nd and 3rd floors. And so hopefully, as we make these appointments and give them to you, we will have room numbers for you. So you will have that information. You should also have contact information for the legislative aides who set up the appointments. So if there's any reason that you're running late or you need to contact them, you will have their phone number. And then the other 2 buildings that you may have meetings in are 1525 Sherman Street, which is north of Colfax across from the Capitol. And then the Legislative Services Building, where the Joint Budget Committee is located, is on the south side of the building at 200 East 14th Avenue. But most legislators' offices are either in the Sherman Street building or in the Capitol itself. Now, you will also have a number of what we call target legislators that we want you to try to meet with who we could not get appointments for. And so that's where you're going to do the real lobbying, and you're going to go in the morning to either the House or the Senate floors, and you're going to wait outside for those legislators and either try to catch them as they're coming into the chamber, or as once they're in the chamber, you can write on a business card. So everyone needs to bring business cards tomorrow, and write on your business card, Senator Smith, I would like to meet with you from Recycle Colorado to discuss the EV battery bill. And then you're going to hand that to one of the guards outside that are wearing either the green or red jackets. And then they will take that in the chamber and hand it to the legislator. And the legislator then will come out to talk to you. So we always get the question, well, how do I know what the legislator looks like? Who am I looking for? And so my advice to you is, when you look at your list of targets and you're trying to find legislators like this, to go ahead and just Google them, and you should be easily then be able on your phone to see a face picture of that legislator if you don't know what they look like. So that'll happen in the morning when you don't have appointments, that you will use cards to request legislators to come out of the chamber to talk to you. Now, when they are doing 3rd readings, they're kind of in lockdown mode, and there'll be a sign that says no cards posted outside the door. So you can't obviously then put cards in, and you will have to wait until 3rd readings are over. And then they take that sign down, and then you can start using cards again to request legislators to come out. Your captains have done this before, and so they will help you with this. But it's a great way to be in the lobby and hear the buzz of the other lobbyists and the other groups that are there that day, and then of course to meet legislators and to talk to them. And then the final important note is for all captains, remember to fill out their lobby day reports. I mean, there's a link in your packet to do that. So this was a map again showing you, so you can see where Colfax is running east and west there, and the Capitol building. And then there's all day parking just to the east of the Capitol building. And then to the north, where that star is right across from Colfax, is 1525 Sherman. And then to the south is the Legislative Services building. Now, the script. The basic outline, and Brandy and I are going to do a little role play for you here in a second. But the script is that we want to first, when we meet legislators, to thank them. Thank them for taking the time to come to speak to us. And if they are a sponsor of the EV battery bill, for example, thank them for being a sponsor. And thank them for any work they may have done in the past, and some of your captains may know that and help with that. But at the very minimum, we want to thank them for meeting with us. And then introduce who Recycle Colorado is, and that is there's in the script there's a line for you to use for that. And then we want to state why we want to meet with them. And so the most important thing is we want to talk to them about the EV battery bill, which is Senate Bill 3. And then we also want to talk about organics and salvage lumber. And then we want to tell legislators why this is important to us, why we care. And I always say start with the heart. You want to build some sort of relationship with that legislator. Try to connect with them. Those are the things that the legislators are going to remember more than they are any facts. And they get flooded with fact sheets day in and day out. They're not going to remember the numbers, but they're going to remember that personal connection, that personal story that you shared with them. And so if you are a constituent of them, it's really important for you to identify yourself as such. But if there is any other thing that may help you relate with them, for example, you live in the district and you know that their grandchild goes to school with your grandchild, or, obviously I'm just making something up, but if there's anything that can help relate to them, then make sure that you mention that. But as far as recycling goes and composting and all the things that we were talking about, we want to describe for the legislator why this is important to us. And so we say, start with the heart, why this is important to you, and then you can throw in some facts after that. And then I've highlighted here, the most important thing of the meeting is to ask them for their support. So we are asking for support of Senate Bill 3, the EV battery bill, and then to finish with asking for questions from the legislator. Remember that 50-50 rule. So say, do you have any questions for us? If you are not on full support right now, what would you need to see to get you to full support of the EV battery bill? Those are the kind of things you want to be asking, and making sure you're taking notes and captains putting those into your reports of the meeting. And then ask, is there anything that we can do to follow up with the legislator and make sure those go into the notes, and then we can certainly share that with our lobbyist. And to finish the meeting with the script with thank you. So the roles of the script, you will see there's different roles described. And so when we break out here in our groups in a few minutes to practice, you want to assign those roles within your group. And so one is the leader. Usually that can be the captain. It doesn't have to be, but they do the welcome and thank you and the introduction to Recycle Colorado. And then make sure everyone in the group gets a chance to introduce themselves, try to make that connection with the legislator in some way. And then stating the topic of the meeting, and then have folks, talk about why this is important to them, and then asking for that support of Senate Bill 3 and asking for the follow-up and questions. So it's the same format I just went over, but you assign different roles. for those different parts. Tips, again, be sure to make your conversation 50-50. Do not make anything up. It is way better to say, you know what, I don't know the answer to that, but it's a great question and we will get back to you. So always defer to that. If you don't know something, don't be afraid to admit it and say, you know what, I don't know that, but that is a great question and we'll get back to you. And of course, to make sure that you take note of that and let us know through those captain reports about what questions the legislator asked that we need to get back to them about. And finally, have fun. It's a really can be a high energy, very fun day. Great chance to get to know other folks in your team and other advocates, and of course, to know legislators. I see some hands up, so I will take questions in a minute, but I first want to do the role play. And so Brandy and I'm going to stop sharing the screen here in a minute. There we go. All right, so Brandy and I are going to, sorry, my son is so bad here. Do a quick role play for you. So Brandy, I'm going to be the lobbyist, the volunteer lobbyist, and Brandy is going to be Representative Mo. And so I have put in my card for Representative Mo, and she has come out of the House chambers, and I'm going to start my conversation with her. So, hello, Representative Mo. Thank you for coming out to talk with us today. We are with Recycle Colorado. We are a statewide organization working to help build the recycling and composting economy here in Colorado. And we are made up of over 300 members. Strong, and we represent all across the state. And we really want to talk to you today about 3 priorities. One most important is the electric vehicle battery bill, Senate Bill 3. Have you heard about this bill? Do you have any questions for us about it?
Have heard about it. I don't have a ton of time. I have like 5 minutes. Is that okay?
Absolutely. Totally want to
Okay.
respect your time. So really quick, that bill is really important for us. Last year, we passed the small and medium format battery bill. This builds off of that. It's so important that our manufacturers take responsibility for these batteries so they're not left like at landfills and they can cause fires. So we really want to be preventing that. And so this bill sets up a system so that they can be properly collected. The manufacturer will be responsible for coming and getting it if it's an unwanted battery that's been left somewhere, and they have to come and get it and properly take care of it and recycle it. And so we are really excited to see this build off of our work on small and medium format batteries from last year.
Well, why didn't you guys include EV battery bills in your legislation last year? That would have taken care of that.
Great question, Representative. We did not include it last year because the small and medium format batteries are very different. You can think about how consumers have lots of them, and we needed a system to collect those on a much larger scale and make it really easy for consumers to be able to drop off or have collection sites for those. And when you think about EV battery bills, much fewer of them and they're much larger. So there's more challenges in how they are managed and handled and collected. So it really needs to be a different system.
Are you sure that, I'm from rural Colorado and our landfills they really benefit from folks bringing stuff to the landfill. Have you talked to the rural landfills? What if they want those EV batteries, or am I thinking wrong on this?
Well, that's a great question, Representative Mo. And yes, we have landfill operators that are members of Recycle Colorado. And so they've been part of the conversation, and that it's actually something they don't want. And it creates quite a hazard. It's very hard for them to manage. So it is something, generally speaking, that they would much prefer to have taken care of and not be brought to the landfill directly.
All right. So you've been talking to them then?
Yes, that's correct. Yeah.
All right. Well, I'll consider it. We have a lot going on right now, but I do appreciate your time. I know a little bit about this bill, but I hadn't thought deep, about the fact that maybe landfills wouldn't want these batteries. I didn't realize they created fires.
Yes, it's quite dangerous. So I know you have to go. Here is our information packet about us and our other priorities. I know we didn't get a chance to talk about salvage lumber and composting or organics diversion. So I want to make sure you have that information. There's a QR code on that so you can get more information about us and what we're working on. our contact information. And so, if you have any questions, please reach out. We'd be happy to help.
All right. Well, thanks for coming to get me.
Thank you. So I have to ask, will you support the EV battery bill, do you think?
I'm gonna have to think about it.
Okay, totally understand, but please reach out if you have any questions and we'll certainly circle back. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Brandy, for that. All right, so we'll take a few questions here and then we will divide up into our groups for you all to practice. So we'll start with Sarah.
Thank you. Hi, Randy. Two quick questions. And forgive me if I missed this, but these bills are how far along? I just wanted a reminder on how
So there's
early.
just one bill that we're talking about, and that's the EV battery bill, Senate Bill 3.
The other ones are not bills yet.
They're
is what
not
you're
bills
saying.
yet, that's correct.
Okay.
And so the EV battery bill started in the Senate and it passed its first committee, which was Senate
Got it.
Energy and Transportation, and it is now headed to Senate Appropriations.
Got it. Okay.
So
And
that's
then my
where,
second question.
yes.
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
Oh, well, I just want to be clear, then the salvage lumber and the organics diversion are not bills, but we want to, if we have a chance, we want to make sure we're talking and educating legislators about them and asking for salvage lumber, we're really asking for any contacts that they have in their districts for us to reach out to, like the construction industry, so that we can be able to educate those folks on the ground about the importance of salvage lumber. So that's the ask there. And then for organics diversion, we are asking to see if they're interested in working with us on a bill in the future.
Got it. Okay. And then my second question is, do you have a cheat sheet on legislators, where they're coming from, where they're, because like, I don't know, for example, if I'm a constituent of so-and-so, right? Is there some place I can look? Because it's a lot of different legislators and, just to figure that out quickly.
So each group will have a list of targets. And in your list, it'll tell you what counties they represent.
Okay.
So you will be able to identify that on
From
the
that list.
target list that we give you tomorrow.
Thank you.
You bet. Excellent question. Becky O'Brien.
I wanted to clarify who I will be loving. It sounds like I maybe will or will not, or in addition to be loving, who are my direct representatives, but maybe also other. I'm just like a little unclear on
Yes.
who I'll be talking to.
No, excellent question. And so we will try very hard to give you assignments of legislators that are from your area, that may be your direct senator or representative who represents you. Can't guarantee that 100% because we've had to do a lot of juggling of groups, but we will try very hard to do that. But you will also be talking to legislators that aren't your senator and representative as well. So it's both.
Okay. Incidentally, it happens to be that Brown and Wallace are my two representatives who
Excellent.
sponsored this bill. So it'll be interesting to actually talk to others also. Thank you.
Yes, for sure, definitely. Guillaume and Sabine.
Yeah, thank you. If tomorrow goes well, when can we expect the bill to become a law?
Great question. Well, I don't have a crystal ball, so I can't predict what's going to happen. I mean, the EV battery bill, Senate Bill 3, has off to a great start. As I said, passed its first committee with only one nay vote, and bipartisan, so that's really promising. But as Eliza, our lobbyist, said, there's a lot going on in the legislature, and especially around the budget, and so it could get stalled and have to wait for other things to get worked out with the budget before it moves along because it's in appropriations, so it may have to wait there a while. And a lot of bills happen right at the end, and that is in May. That's the end of the session, is like the first week in May. So we have between now and then to hope that it gets through the whole process and gets to the governor's desk.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much.
You bet. Good question. Okay, Allie. Oh, yes, Peter.
So in the role play, you mentioned that Recycle Colorado has 300 whatever members. Yeah, but a lot of those members are organizations. So we could talk about the constituency as being, much, much larger. And I think it's better to use larger numbers. Do we know what the constituency of Recycle Colorado is?
That's a question for Brandy or Allie.
I'd have to double check, but off the top of my head, I think we have like 200 organizations / individual members, and then that's probably double in terms of like individual people that are a part of our membership or engage with our membership. So like 400, 500 people. I don't know, rough numbers.
Yeah.
I can add too that we have around 30 municipalities, so like cities or towns, and around 15 counties throughout the state. So for context.
Okay. It'd be good to have some of those numbers at hand for.
It should be on the brochure that you hand out to legislators. There's information on Recycle
Okay.
Colorado and what our membership kind of consists of. And then on our website, there's some additional stuff that if you guys want to do some sleuthing before lobby day, I highly recommend that.
Sure.
Brian.
I remember seeing amendments on the battery bill. We signed on to a support amendments letter. Did Recycle Colorado endorse those amendments, or are they just endorsing the bill as a regular?
Brandy, do you want to address that?
Yeah, so there was a letter of support for amendments that went out, and we have not signed on to it because we had to go through our big long process of taking it to the policy committee, having it discussed, and taking it to the board. And the timeline was just too tight for us to get our to complete our process for approval.
Patrick, send it to Jim.
No, I can.
Okay. Yeah, Jim needs it.
Yeah.
Okay. Great questions. I want to give you time to meet your teammates. And so Allie is going to work magic and get you all into separate Zoom rooms. And so really quick before you all disappear to do that, the instructions are to get in your groups. Now, not everyone's going to be in your group today, and you'll meet new folks tomorrow, but at least with the folks that are here today, to introduce yourselves if you don't know each other, identify if you have a team captain that is present, and then to go through and assign what role in the script that you want to play and to practice that with each other. And so you have about 15 minutes to do that. We will not reconvene after that. So once you are done, you can drop off. This is your time in the remaining 15 minutes to work in your groups, because we really won't have much time tomorrow to do this. So we wanted to carve that time out today. And as always, if there are questions that you have that come up either during your 15 minutes today or afterwards, please do not hesitate to reach out to myself, Allie, or Brandy, and we can help address those. And of course, we will be there bright and early tomorrow morning, 7:45. See you all with bells on, and we will have an amazing day. And so with that, I will turn over to Brandy to work or Allie to work her magic.
Awesome. Thank you, Randy, so much. We have too many Randy or Andys, I guess. Randy does a great job each year. If you didn't see it in the chat, when you do get in your group, also exchange phone numbers and create a group chat if you can. That is super helpful just to kind of communicate with each other throughout the day, and say like, we got this meeting covered. If you guys can go do this meeting, if you decide to split up. Just
don't forget your business cards.
Yes. And another note, I have a couple of things that I was going to chime in on. I have business cards, some of mine that are old, but they have Recycle Colorado's like logo and information on them. So I'll bring those. They have a lot of space on the back to like write, please come talk to me about the EV battery bill. Here's my phone number, whatever you want to write on there. And yeah, there's a bunch of helpful resources people are putting in the chat to learn more about legislators, or if there's different regions or different issues within your region that you want to look into more. If you want to look into Recycle Colorado more, there's a ton of things on this really cool thing called Google that you can use. Really dig deep on legislators. You'll have some time in between your meetings typically where you can just sit there and cyberstalk the legislator you're about to talk with. And you can talk with your fellow teammates just to like, okay, do you live like one year a girl lived near the landfill in Erie, and so she was like, I can totally talk about that if you just want to do like the expert advice since you know more on this bill. And so she appealed to the heart and honestly the legislature